Cominciamo subito.
Okay.
You're all seeing the screen, right? You're all seeing the presentation screen. Okay, very good then. Let me just say buon pomeriggio to everyone who's following us from the US, and buonasera to everyone who's following us from Italy. And so my name is Sandra Gengler. I'm the president of the Italian Cultural Center, which is the premier nonprofit organization that promotes Italian language and cultures in the Twin Cities. Today we have the first event of a new series, which we call Viaggi per l'Italia, Travels Across Italy. And it's a series dedicated to discovering beauty in uncommon places. Today, we will travel through Le Marche, a region in central Italy along the Adriatic Sea. This is my region, and taking us across this wonderful, undiscovered place yet are Valentina Andreucci and Martina Regnicolo, whom I got to know very well last year when I took a small group to Le Marche for an educational tour. Let me tell you a little bit about them. Valentina's passion and training are in classical humanistic studies. She holds a degree in literature from the University of Macerata and a master's degree in art history from the University of Bologna. She teaches history and art and design at the Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Ancona, and Italian language and art at Scuola Dante Alighieri in Recanati. So we have actually several participants here today who can attest to her extraordinary ability to bring art and history to life. She's also a qualified examiner for Italian language certification for foreigners, and she writes scientific papers and popular articles on art and history on various publications. For ICC, Valentina has penned a few articles which we have published in Il Caffè di Oggi. Martina is an accomplished cook and food blogger. And she probably wasn't even alive back then. In 2011, she started Officina della Gastronomia, which is a website entirely dedicated to cooking. She works full-time as an office manager at Scuola Dante Alighieri in Recanati, where she organizes gastronomy classes and cooking lessons for the students. Last year, Martina was our program coordinator extraordinaire, as she prepared an unforgettable schedule of tours and excursions for our group. Martina's, as you will hear, impeccable English comes from living and working for 8 years in London. Since the start of the pandemic, she even started her own vegetable garden to complete the food circle from soil to table. Today, she will guide us through the flavors and bounty of Le Marche. Okay, so then also I would like to send a shout out to two people that offer their beautiful photos for this presentation. Grazie to Tom Lutz, who's a friend now, who came with us to Recanati last year. And grazie to Marco Marcelli, who happens to be my cousin and is also present. So before we get started though, I have let me share a few housekeeping rules. This presentation is being recorded because eventually we'll make it available to view for others. I also would like to remind you to keep yourself muted. This way we don't have a lot of extraneous voices and noises. I suggest that you have the speaker view option at the very top. You have either gallery view or speaker view. Use the speaker view, because that way you always get to see who's speaking in the big square. The presentation will last approximately 45 minutes, and then we will have a session on questions, Q&A at the end. And what I was going to suggest, if you have questions that you have that comes to your mind, use the chat function, the little chat icon at the very bottom, and write it in whenever you like. And then we will kind of field them as we go at the very end. So at the end, then I will call your name and you can ask the question, or I can read the question and it'll be fine. So with all the housekeeping rules and suggestions done, I would like to I'd like to pass the mic to Valentina and Martina, and I hope you will enjoy the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. So I start. So ciao a tutti, buon pomeriggio. It's a pleasure for me and Martina to be with you today. Well, I would like to show you our beautiful region through the senses: sight, taste, earrings, and another one. Well, a characteristic of Le Marche is the plurality. Le Marche, the name, is plural. Is the only region, Italian region, plural in its name. And also, everything is plural in our region. So I want to show you the beauty of our land. Well, I want to show you a map of the region. Okay, and the 4 red circles mark 4 areas that I show you in the next slides. And I want to start with the first sense, the sight, using a color called in Italian azzurro. Azzurro exists only in Italian and is a color between the blue and the light blue. Ok, oh, the slide. Stanno correndo.
No, scusate.
Ah, okay. This is the first picture, the first photo. Well, you can find this specific color everywhere, from east to west, from the coast to the inland, to the mountains, from north to south. And I want to start from the east, from the coast, showing you 2 special shores that are in the Monte Conero Natural Park. The first shore is in the next slide. It's this one that is called Two Sisters Beach. Well, the strange name is due to the presence of 2 rocks in the water. If you see these rocks from far, they seem to be 2 nuns in prayer. So from this reason, the name of the Two Sisters shore. And it's a wonderful place because you can arrive there only by boat. You cannot walk, but only by a boat. And it's inside this natural, beautiful landscape frame, like another shore that is called Porto Novo. Porto Novo is characterized by this so clear water, azzurra, because the azzurro color is in the water. And it's famous in our region, this shore, because it's inside it's surround, yes, it's inside this, this setting, the Mount Conero. And in this picture, there is a monument. It's a Romanesque church, the Romanesque Church of Santa Maria. Yes, because in Italy it's typical to see among the nature old ancient buildings, monuments. In this case, you can see here this beautiful church, or also an old tower built by in the next. Scusa Sandra, io uso sempre questo gesto quando parlo, ok? In the pictures in the left, there is an old tower. This tower was built by order of the Pope in the 1716, and it's so so close to the water, to the sea. So when you go there and you swim, you can see these beautiful monuments. Okay, there is the picture of the water that is crystalline. And there is also another monument that is a French fort. There isn't now the picture, that now houses an hotel. This French fort was built during the Napoleon time to defense the land. So you can see this kind of monuments. Well, but if you go from the coast to the inland, okay, and I want to show you some pictures from north to south, you can see this canyon is a pass through the mountains down by a river, the Candigliano River, characterized by this color among the azzurro and the green. Sometimes it depends by the light condition, and it's a wonderful valley through the mountains. Or also, and it's called Gola. Gola is like pass. Gola del Furlo. Or in the other picture, there is this lake. It's an artificial lake called Fiastra Lake, also here with this wonderful color. But a very stunning place that I want to speak more about it is the Pilot's Lakes. Okay, this is very beautiful. Consider that it's inside the Monti Sibillini National Park at about 2,000 meters above sea level. You have to hike to get there, and the view is breathtaking. And the characteristic of these lakes is that the size is different in relation to the season and to the rains. When the season is dry and hotter, the lakes are divided. And when there are another climatic conditions, is one lake with this beautiful blue azzurro color. Well, why these lakes have this strange name, Pontius Pilate's Lakes? The name derives from a legend. Well, the legend says that Pilate fell with his chariot, in the lake, and he died. So Pilate was the judge, was the man who had to judge Jesus Christ. So maybe the legends have two versions. Is blood colored the water, or maybe is the color red, and I explain you because I want to speak of the red color. The blood of Jesus Christ colored the water because Pilate didn't want to judge Jesus Christ. Because I want to speak of red color, because sometimes the water can seem a little red, because there is a very, very small red shrimp in the water. Ok, Chirocefalo del Marchesoni is the scientific name. Is very, very small and is present only in this lake, no in another part of the earth, only here. And it can resist only to very hot or very cold temperature. So it can survive in every condition. So for this reason, for this shrimp, the water sometimes has this red nuance. So I speak about nature. The nature gives us many products. So to the products is connected, linked, speaking of Martina. Martina, do you want to say something about?
Yes.
Yes.
Ciao a tutti, first of all. As Valentina said, she talked you through history and arts, and she will talk to you about the geographical of our region. I will talk to you about flavors, the bounty, what we have in our region. A little forward, our cuisine, Le Marche cuisine, is virtually unknown abroad, sometimes even in Italy. People don't know what we have and our food, and that's because our gastronomic produce is mainly a produce that is very simple, that has got its roots into our peasants' origins as well as our sort of fishermen's origins. So it's not fancy, and that's why it's not famous abroad like Tuscan foods or Tuscan wines. And maybe that's my reason, you know, why it is unknown. But we are very much grounded to the chilometro zero, which means a very short chain from the producer to the table. As Sandra was saying earlier, we like to eat fresh products, some products that has not been worked too much or handled too much. So that's a little sort of forward on our cuisine. What we see in this slide are the moscioli, il mosciolo selvatico di Portonovo, wild mussels of Portonovo. You'd say it looks like a mussel to me, and it is, but basically it is very particular because, first of all, it's plumpier than regular mussels, and it can only be found in our shorelines, our coast, in an area of about 10-15 kilometers. What you see on the top right of this slide is what we call the beam, il trave, which is like a very slim walking area. And all the mussels, all these moscioli can be found just under it. The mosciolo, it's a slow food safeguarded produce. I don't know if you know what slow food is. It's an association that was born in 1989. It's a worldwide organization that aims to safeguard and protect products as well as, for example, animals that are endangered or in sort of, they could become, they could disappear. So, and also guarantees that the food chain supply is transparent. That's what slow food does. So the Moscolo di Portonovo is safeguarded. It's got the stamp of the slow food movement. In fact, different to other mussels, it has a spontaneous reproduction. So you cannot farm the Moscoli. You could farm other mussels, you cannot farm those. So the cost is higher. How do we eat them? Normally a fisherman from Ancona would just open it with a little knife, squeeze some lemon and eat it raw. I personally prefer to saute them quickly with some garlic, olive oil, splash of white wine, and maybe cook some pasta with it. Whatever you do, we need to follow what the fishermen from Ancona say, which is the expression "C'avemo I moscioli e ci piace il vi," which means we have the mussels, we like to drink wine with it. So whatever you do, just have, you know, a nice glass of chilled white wine to go with it, and you're fine. Okay, next slide. What we see here are paccasassi or spaccasassi. They are some little green shoots, similar in taste to fennel. They taste savory, almost spicy, and they're called spaccasassi because, as you can see on the slide here, they are born in the crevices of rocks, and the rocks of cliffs just above the water, so only around coastal areas of the Adriatic. They disappear in winter and come back in spring, and they take 2 years to grow. So they are very expensive for this, and also because you have to pick them manually. So, you know, as you can understand, it's quite a job. And a fun fact for you here, William Shakespeare, in its King Lear, if you want to be precise, it was in Act 4, Scene 6, talks about the men gathering some fire. So he calls them samphire, S-A-M-P-H-I-R-E, samphire. The job of gathering samphire was a dreadful trade because, obviously, as you can understand, very, very dangerous. There is only one company in Italy that produces paccasassi, which is called Rinci, which is a very young startup company from 2 young boys of the Marche. And basically they had this sort of idea of getting some European Communion money to get to plant the little seeds of paccasassi, to then sort of starting an industrial production, if we can call it that. You can eat them raw in salads. They are sort of crunchy, or like they do, they put it in brine. So same as olives, you can find them in little pots or little cans. They're great with cheese, mortadella, or even some fish. Yeah, rich in vitamin C. So if you never tried it, if you come to Le Marche, that's a nice gift to get back with you, a little can of paccasassi. And now brodetto, fish soup, fish stew. I don't know how long we have, but we could stay here and talk for hours about the brodetto. Brodetto means broth. Again, as we said before, our food has got a humble origin. So the brodetto was born because the fishermen found themselves with some fish that maybe was unsold at the market, or the catch of the day was maybe, you know, the fish was too small or was slightly sort of broken, couldn't be sold. So they would put together in the pan and make a nice fish soup. So that's how it was born. But today it is a very delicious and quite expensive dish. It can contain 7 to 13 or even 15 types of different fish and shellfish, and it's got a very rich taste. Along Le Marche region, just in our region, we have at least 4 or 5 different versions. Sometimes, like in the picture here, you see that we use tomato paste or tomato passata, or fresh tomatoes, or peppers, or garlic. Some people like to use onion instead of garlic. In some areas, they cook it using seawater. Or in Porto de Canati, for example, they use saffron and they use sea rocks, little rocks, to put in the pan so that the fish becomes soft, so they say. Totally against the law nowadays, but that's how they used to do it. And of course, everyone claimed to have the best brodetto. You know, mine is the best. For example, in my house, we have, my husband is from Fano, so that's one of the areas where the brodetto comes from. And he says that, you know, his mom's brodetto is the best. I personally think that mine is the best, but you know, there you are. There is an expression that's a fun fact for you here, which says più antique del brudet. It is a slang expression from Fano, and actually I've learned it when I was sort of engaged to be with my now husband. Now I will make you smile. We went to have a stroll, me and my mother-in-law, my future mother-in-law. We met a friend of hers, and this lady was wearing, I don't know, I can't even remember what she was wearing, but when she left, my grandma, my mother-in-law was like, oh, wow, yeah. When she left, she goes, ah, did you see a skirt? It was più antique del brudet, meaning so old-fashioned. Oh my God, that skirt was like a no-no. So I learned there and then this expression, più antique del brudet, older than the fish stew. As I said, there are many, very different versions, but there are sort of 7 rules which apply to whatever brodetto you decide to go for. First of all, you always need to book your brodetto in advance because, as I said, because there are so many different kinds of fish and it takes time to cook, you need to book in advance. You need to be at least 2 people eating it because no one will go into so much trouble for just 1 portion, let me tell you this. It is only made with fresh fish, which mean that you would never find in the same restaurant the same brodetto, even if you go, you know, 2 days in a row, because obviously it would be done with whatever fish they would find in the market. Number 5, fish are put and cooked in the same pan, and they're put in the pan at different times. So they would start with the fish that would take longer to cook, like for example, calamari or cuttlefish. And then at the end, towards the end, they would put fish like mussels and clams that would take shorter time to cook. We always have toasted bread with it because we need to do scarpetta, which I'm sure you all know what it is when you use your bread to mop up the sauce at the end of the meal. And very important is they're all made with vinegar, and that's an historical point. As I said to you, the seamen used to cook it with whatever fish was left, and obviously they would never waste good wine to go with the brodetto. They would use, you know, old wine or vinegar, because the good wine, you drink it with the brodetto, not in the brodetto, okay? And now I'll leave it to Vale, which will talk about the beauties of our countryside.
Yes, yes. And now, thank you, Martina. And now, after sight, taste, now I want to speak about of the sense of the smell that is connected to the countryside, because if you walk in the countryside in our region, you can perceive the sense of the different plants and essences. In fact, a characteristic of our region made by rolling and gentle hills, like in this photo, is the division of the land like a patchwork with different also colors. And in each portion, each part is used for a different crop. In fact, in the other slide, okay, you can see lands with olive trees, sunflowers, wheat, vineyards, and oh, I see. Yes, I'm sorry. In the picture with the wheat harvest, there is a woman with a very strange. No, I'm not me. Non sono io. Yes. Okay, it's a picture, a photo done during an historical reconstruction with people wearing very old traditional clothes. So now today, a farmer uses modern clothes, okay? But it was a typical female clothing of the last or 2 centuries ago. Okay, so we have very large varieties of crops, and about all the tradition, you can often see in the countryside this kind of buildings. It's a typical farmhouse. So the structure of this kind of building is always the same. On the ground floor, there were rooms for animals and tools. And in the first floor, there was the farmer's home. So this building are typical of our region. Our region, before the unification of Italy, was in the state of the church, like other Italian regions, like, for instance, Umbria or Emilia-Romagna. But if you go in these other regions, the farmhouses are different. So each region has a typical towns, buildings in the towns, or also in this case in the countryside. And why in our region you can find this division of the land? Because from centuries, from the Middle Ages, there were, now today no, but there were the so-called mezzadria. Mezzadria was a system of management of the agricultural properties. So mezzadria, the name, derives from the adjective mezzo. Mezzo means half. It was a contract between a nobleman or a church and a farmer. So a nobleman or also a church had large portions of lands, who divided in portions, including a house. So the contract was this: a farmer worked for the nobleman, for instance, but the payment wasn't money, but was half harvest. So mezzadria means half harvest to the farmer, half harvest to the landowner. This system was used until the unification of Italy, or also until the beginning of the 20th century in our region. Another element of the buildings, the farm houses, is that between the 2 floors, there were, now in this picture, there isn't this element, but usually there was a colored band running all around the building. This color band was of the same color. For instance, if the band was blue, it means that the owner was a specific nobleman. So each building with the same colored band was of the same owner. So now, also today, with restored buildings, we can see these restored also colored. So this was typical. And in this contract, the worker, the farmer, wasn't a servant or a slave, was a free, independent worker. So only with this path to divide the harvest. So, and it's typical of the central part of Italy, totally different from the latifundism that you can find in the South Italy. Okay, but I speak about the variety of the crops. So there are also many products, and Martina can say us something about the use of our products.
Exactly. Actually, some of Sandra's students that came last year can tell you also about this lovely picture that you see here, which is the potacchio. The word potacchio should come from the French potage, which meant something cooked in the same crock pot. So it's all the ingredients put at the same time, roughly, and just cooked for a long time in a pot. Again, this dish, which is now, whatever you see in the picture, it's rabbit in potacchio sauce, but the word potacchio is now used as a general word for a type of cooking where you have 4 staple ingredients, which are olive oil, garlic, rosemary, and white wine. Excuse me. Sorry. It's not COVID. Sorry.
Let's hope so.
I'm safe. So, together with the 4 staple ingredients, every family then personalized the recipe. So, for example, what you see here, it's my own recipe of making the potacchio with adding sage and thyme and tomatoes. Sorry. You can do now potacchio with aubergines, lamb, pork, even fish. So you can personalize the recipe and also personalize the use of it with other kind of dish. There's a little, how do we cook potacchio? Basically, we brown the meat in olive oil and garlic. Then we add some white wine to deglaze it. And then we add the herbs and tomato if we use it. And then we add some water for a slow cooking of whatever meat you decide to go for. And we say that the potacchio is cooked when it returns into the oil, which means that at the beginning of the recipe, you start with oil and then you add the liquids, and the meat is cooked after about an hour when you get the oil again and all the liquids have evaporated. There's a little fun fact about the potacchio, which again takes me back to when I was engaged, before being engaged with my now husband. And there's this, we went to, after a few months we were dating, we went to one of his uncles, old uncle. And he, as soon as we arrived, he said, "Oh, a nice girl." And he asked my now husband, "Have you already eaten the coniglio in potacchio?" So I looked at him to say, "What?" It was lunchtime, and he's like, "Why?" And he explained to me that the expression, have you already eaten the coniglio in potacchio, meant, is this a kind of serious relationship? Have you already met her parents? And this was because in old days, of the farmers' days, you boyfriend would have been invited into your girlfriend's house only when it was sort of an official relationship. And in that day, on that first invitation, official invitation, your future mother-in-law would cook the best and the fattest rabbit. You know, they would kill the best animal they had in your honor. So if they cook that for you, it means that they liked you and they wanted to be with, you know, their daughter and then get married. Next slide. Okay, this is one of my favorite dish. It's a must bread, pane di mosto, which is born to be a soft bread and then it becomes sort of a crisp, sweet bread afterwards. I'll tell you more about it in a second. We talked before about our desire in Le Marche to eat food that is fresh, that comes, you know, according to the season. In Italy, we will never dream of, I don't know, eating courgettes. Well, now probably we have courgettes all year round, but, you know, must could only be found when the grapes are harvesting. So say from mid-September till beginning of November. And must is exactly fresh squeezed juice out of the grape. So it's grape juice, filtered and non-fermented. So before it becomes wine, you get the must. And what farmers used to do was to have 3/4 of the must going into the barrel to become wine, and 1/4 would be for the wife to bake these sweet breads. And again, the farmer had to think, okay, how can I keep this bread as long as I can? And that was to bake it twice. So basically, you would make your bread using the must instead of water or milk, because obviously milk was a rich man's drink if you didn't have cows. And then you would eat this bread once it was ready, you know, the next day, say, and it would keep good and fresh for a couple of days. And then when it became stale, they would bake it again for a second time to crisp it up so that the water would evaporate. You would have a crispy version, which would keep for months. So not to waste anything, that's, you know, that was the sort of winter bread for them. So that's me.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Martina. Well, now we are arrived to the last sense. But first, I want to show you again the map. The 5 red circles marks the 5 places in the photos in the next slides. But in my next speech, all the region is involved. So this is only a very small numbers of places. So the next sense is hearing. And in a region characterized by the plurality, we can hear sounds or not. So in this case, a duality. Yes, because if you spend a day in our typical borghi, you can feel the silence. In fact, many people love to live in these very small towns for this reason, because they seek peace and silence. And Le Marche are full of borghi. 21 small towns that we called borghi have the orange flag. I'm sorry, Sandra, okay, the previous slide, there is the symbol of the bandiera arancione, orange flag, is a recognition for the quality, the beauty of the place and the quality of life that you can have in these towns. And in our region, we have 21 towns with this recognition. Yes, thank you, Sandra. Okay, for instance, you can spend a day in this borgo called Gradara. Gradara is wonderful, is beautiful, with its residential castle that is partly medieval and partly Renaissance. And it's a town famous because it's the place where the lovers Paolo and Francesca died. And they became two characters of Dante Alighieri's Divina Commedia, Divine Comedy. So it's famous for all the Italian people. Or maybe you can pass a day, you can spend a day, you could visit other borgis like Mondavio or also Offagna. Offagna with its incredible defensive castle. Yes, because we have in Italy, residential or defensive castles, and this one is perfectly preserved, conserved. Well, some people ask, what is a borgo? Well, borgo is singular. Borghi is the plural. Well, in Italy and in the Marche region, borgo is not simply a small town, but often you can see also today a medieval or Renaissance castle with fortified walls. Medieval castles, medieval walls, medieval buildings, and the plan of the town. The buildings usually are in bricks or stones. So in our region in particular, they are on an hill. In other regions, you can find borghi, a borgo in a valley, but in our region, characterized by many hills, you can find them on a hill. Well, but in contrast to the silence, there is the sound. And the sound that I want to explain you is the music, because our region is linked to the music from centuries. In this picture, I want to show you a very special building called Speristerio. Speristerio is in Macerata and is an open-air theatre. It's an arena used by 3 centuries for open-air operas and concerts. It's a neoclassical arena, and consider that it's second only to the arena in Verona for operas during the summer. And now another special kind of building for the music is the historical theatres. Well, this one is only an example, is the Rossini Theatre in Pesaro. Well, I want to give you only some numbers. Our region is very small because, okay, I have the number. It's 3,600 square miles, 1,050,000 inhabitants, but we have 220 7 towns with their own mayor. And in total, we have 100 historical theatres today used, also today. So it's a very great number. And we have also modern theatres, of course. This one, the Rossini Theatre in Pesaro, and the other historical theatres have the typical Italian form of a horseshoes. It's correct, Sandra? Horseshoes, ferro di cavallo.
Horseshoe, yeah.
Oh, horseshoes, okay. It's typical of the Italian theatre. And sometimes you can find also original paintings or original curtains, sipario, curtains, the red sipario, okay. But not only the buildings, but also the peoples. I want to show you, for instance, only 3 persons, 2 composers, Giovan Battista Pergolesi or Gioacchino Rossini, who composed The Barber of Seville, for instance, and the tenor Beniamino Gigli. Beniamino Gigli from Recanati, the town where there is our school, Dante Alighieri Italian School, and think that Beniamino Gigli became very famous also in the United States, and in New York there is the Beniamino Gigli Day from the 1997. Yes, there was this institution. So, well, I hope, we hope, Martina and I, to have you passionate on Le Marche. Oh, this is our town, you know, Recanati. Yes,
and I hope also.
Yes,
and I hope, I hope, Vale, also I hope that they sort of are curious to know more about it. And I forgot to show my pan di mosto, which I baked a few days ago. So as I said, it was fresh, and now tomorrow I'll slice it and bake it again to make biscotti. It's a shame that you can't smell it because it's wonderful.
Okay, grazie Martina, grazie Valentina.
Thank you.
For the time being, but I want, before we move on to the questions, I'd like to show you 50 seconds of a video, kind of a recap, and then we're going to move on to the questions. So hang with me, because we're going to have to stop share this, and I'm going to connect you with the video.
Mostly.
Okay. We're coming back here. So I'd like to give everyone a chance to ask Martina and Valentina any questions, and let's see. Okay. Here's a question. I hope, by the way, I hope you liked perhaps more than what you were expecting or less. We just took a few. few topics, few ideas, and you know, and we could go on. So let me. First question is for Martina. We talked about slow foods. What other type of slow foods are in Le Marche?
In Italy, there are many products. Not only products, but sometimes even a certain type of cows is protected by slow food, you know, because as I said before, they want to safeguard foods or animals that might go extinct. In Le Marche, there are 10 products, going from the green aniseed of Castigliano to the pecorino, which is a cheese of Sibillini, the pink apples of the Sibillini, a type of bean, which is fagiolo di, I'll tell you in a sec, laverino, a cicerchia, which is another legume, the carciofo, which is an artichoke of Montelupone. So whenever you see a slow food product, you will always see the name and a city or an area where it comes from, because as I said, they safeguard and protect a certain product of an area. So yep. 10 in Le Marche.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Here's a question for Valentina. We know of a famous cave, le Grotte di Frasassi. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Oh, okay. Yes, in the video you can see a cave called Grotte di Frasassi, that is Frasassi Caves. Frasassi is a name that means among the rocks, the stones, and is a mountain in the Gola della Rossa Pass, who was carved for centuries by a river, and now inside is empty with these 7 levels of caves with stalactites and stalagmites, and they were discovered casually, that is by chance, in the 70s by speleologists, and now you can visit there all the year. Yes, it's one of the most large caves and beautiful caves in Europe. Yes.
Lecture. Sorry, sorry, I interrupt.
No. Oh, inside the caves there are also animals, and one is like a prehistorical animal. Yes, prehistorical. Yes, it's like un anfibio. Oddio, Sandra, aiutami.
An amphibian
frog.
Is that a frog? Yeah.
Yes, very, very old. Yes, present only in a lake inside the caves.
Yeah. Fletcher asks, what are some regional wines to try?
Wait a minute, because we have just a minute, Martina. We have one question from Jim. Jim Rosati has a question. Jim, do you want to unmute yourself? You want to ask? Jim, I can't hear you well, or I can't hear you much. Okay. Okay. Jim, go ahead. Jim, we cannot hear you. I think something maybe in your microphone, I don't know. Or maybe if you want to ask, if you want to send the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I'm really interested in the region because my dad's father and I believe his parents, in other words, the ancestry was down by Ascoli Piceno. We didn't know of where my grandfather was born until we found his birth record, which was Viaggi, which is outside Italy. Is there history to that? Because I know there was a lot of intermingling between the region and Abruzzo, because that's where my grandmother is from, right within 5 miles on the other side of the line. And I do believe that's how my grandmother and grandfather got together, because my grandmother's dad was a landowner, and my grandfather was, and his parents were farmers and sharing, I would have to say, a sharecropper.
It's Adri.
Ok. Sandra, c'era una domanda nella chat.
Jim, sorry, just wanted to say that,
Yeah.
Jim, you've got to come to Le Marche, because Ascoli Piceno, to me, is one of the most beautiful towns in Le Marche. There's a famous square, which is all in travertine. Whoever came with Sandra last year might remember. It's absolutely beautiful. It's called a Salotto d'Italia, which is one of the, how would you translate that, Sandra? It's a piazza salotto, means it's like a cute little square. You know, don't think about San Marco in Venice or St. Peter's, you know, huge piazzas. This is like a boutique thing with little cafes and little arches all around. It's beautiful. And it's great for fried food. So Olivia all'Ascolana is one of the best dishes that come from the stuffed olives, pan-fried. Great.
Okay.
And Martina, Ascoli Piceno, the historical city center, is in Renaissance style and is called the Florence of the Marche region. Yes, everything is in travertine and in Renaissance style. Yes.
Jim, you've got to come.
Okay.
Hey,
We have another question. We have another question about from Fletcher.
Sure.
Something about regional wines. Would you like to ask the question? Unmute yourself and ask the question. Or the question is about regional wines. Basically, if you, Martina, if you could speak to our,
Yes, I'm curious to know, the wines from Le Marche are supposed to be quite good.
Yes.
And so do you have some recommendations?
Absolutely. You've got to try. I will write the names as I speak in the chat, so you will see. I give you the pronunciation, but you will see how to spell it.
Grazie.
The best white wine one I think is the very best, which is very, you would see it written as verdicchio, but it's verdicchio with a CH, with a strong sound. Is a dry white wine which goes great with fish. Among the red wines, you have the Rosso Conero, Rosso Piceno, and Lacrima di Morro d'Alba, which means Morro d'Alba's tear. These are great. These are great reds. But your question is very interesting, because not just we have wine, we have also two great produce which are to be drunk with sweet or desserts. One is the vino cotto. Vino cotto means cooked wine. It's not a brulee, it's just a sort of procedure to get a sweet wine, which goes well with desserts. So there you are. I also thought about another one, which is Vino di Miscela.
Esatto.
is a bisciola is a kind of cherry, it's a sour cherry, and we make a wine with it. This, I don't think you can find Vino di Visciola in the States, Sandra. This is very...
Actually, there is not in Minnesota. It was found in California.
Wow. Okay.
We don't have very much
Yeah.
here from Le Marche. There are a few, but yeah, they're harder to find.
And another produce, which is something that they tried, you know, the guys that came last year with Sandra, they tried the anisetta or barnelli, which is a liqueur made with aniseed that you would use either to drink it straight, quite strong, or you can use it to correct your coffee. You know, we have, look at Tom, Lars, and Jean. They use a little splash in your coffee to make it corretto. We say caffè corretto. I'll write in the chat with Barnelli or Anisetta.
Okay.
Let's go to the next. Otherwise, we're not gonna. This is great. Yeah. So I saw a question from Caprice Nicoli, who asked us, "What can you type the town name in the chat? The town, which town name? I don't know what." Caprice, would you like to say? Would you like to tell us? Unmute yourself and ask.
Sure. It was when Jim was talking about the area that his family is from, and then that prompted a discussion about a beautiful town square. But I don't speak Italian, and I wasn't able to parse the name enough to spell it out and figure out what that would be.
The name that they were mentioning, that Martina mentioned, was Ascoli Piceno. It's at the very bottom of the region. It's the seat of the province of that area. So Ascoli Piceno.
And I'm retyping because I realized that I was only replying to Jim, the name of the wine. Sorry about that. So I'm retyping the name of the wines that I was talking about as we go along.
Martina, I was going to tell you, when you type, mute yourself because we can hear you typing.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. There is another question though. Mary Leoni. Well, but we'll have to get that. She's asking me about the soup base. Okay. I'll just have to give her a private lesson later.
Sandra, I can also add that the name of the red wine, Rosso Piceno, and the town, Ascoli Piceno, there is always the same word, Piceno. Piceno is from an antique people, very old people, before the Roman conquest. So these people who lived in the southern part of our region, the Piceni. So this is the reason of this adjective added to the name of the wine and the town.
Which, by the way, there are people that predate the Greeks and the Romans. So they were super ancient, very, very ancient people. I am not seeing more questions. I don't know if anybody has. If you have a question, why don't you unmute yourself and just ask, I think at this point, because we're running late and I don't want to go completely crazy on the time.
There's a question for you. Will you believe in more groups in the market?
Okay, so, Stephen is asking, I guess me, Falconara Marittima is on the map. Is this an Albanian diaspora town? My grandparents came from Falconara Albanese. That's different. Yes, Falconara Marittima is in the market. No, it is not an Albanian diaspora, but they have this similar name. I don't know, I can't tell you unless, Valentina, you know where that name comes from.
Falconara?
Uh-huh.
I'm honest, I don't know the
Yeah.
origin of the name. No. Marittima means that is close to the sea.
Okay.
Mare means sea, marittima.
Uh,
Falconara albanese, I think that is, I can search, is in Calabria region, because Albanese means from Albany, because in this other region, Calabria, there are some people from Albany.
Albania, yes.
Albania, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Here's another, some
Sono
people
già
are trying to
iscrizioni.
leave, so I don't wanna, oh, these things are just skipping. Everybody's thanking me. Why don't I just say this? I wanna just kind of wrap it up. Kind of thank everybody, thank Valentina, thank Martina. It was so nice to see you again, to have you here. I just want to say that the ICC offers lots of opportunities to discover Italy, its art, language, cuisine, and we have a lot more events planned throughout the year that we plan to offer for you. And finally, I just want to thank everyone who made a contribution to attend this event. Your contribution is needed and is very much appreciated at this point in this particular predicament. As a token of our appreciation, you will receive 2 recipes, especially curated by Martina, of this Cucina Marchigiana. So you will get it in the mail for that. So I thank you all. Buon pomeriggio. If you are in the United States, buonasera. If you are in Italy, thank you very, very much.
Thank you
Grazie a
all.
voi.
Thank you, Sandra, for having us.
Grazie mille. Sì.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao a tutti.
We keep on to say hi.
And
Oh, oui. Oh.
Pat, Jean, Tom, Michelle, Michael, Suzanne, Penny,
Ciao.
all of you.
Oh.
Who's missing? Richard. Is that just Richard missing?
no, Richard is not present.